why he suddenly disappeared. 5 mistakes that make men lose interest. Why did he suddenly disappear? Maybe it's not about him at all. Maybe it's about 5 things you never even suspected. I know this might sound harsh, but hear me out. There's an ancient Greek myth about Echo, a nymph cursed to only repeat the last words she heard. She fell deeply in love with Narcissus, but could never speak her own thoughts, only mirror his voice back to him. Eventually, she faded away until nothing remained but her voice bouncing off empty walls.
You've probably felt like Echo at some point. That moment when someone who seemed so interested suddenly becomes distant, unreachable. When the texts grow shorter, the calls less frequent, and you're left wondering what invisible line you crossed. The truth is, most of us become Echo without realizing it. We lose ourselves in the very act of trying to keep someone close. In this video, you'll discover why men suddenly lose interest and what you can do to make sure this never happens again. Because once you understand these patterns, everything changes.
Mistake number 1, becoming his mirror. Have you ever caught yourself becoming someone else when you're attracted to someone? Here's what it looks like. He mentions he loves jazz, and suddenly you're exploring Miles Davis, even though you've never been into music like that. He talks about hiking, and you find yourself researching trail maps, buying hiking boots you'll probably never use again. Picture this. You're naturally a homebody who loves quiet evenings with a book, but he's the life of every party. So you find yourself in crowded bars, surrounded by strangers, forcing smiles and wondering why you feel so empty inside.
There's nothing wrong with trying new things, but there's a crucial difference between genuine curiosity and what I call personality shape-shifting. When you mirror someone too completely, something unsettling happens. They sense something is missing, though they can't quite name it. Imagine walking into a room filled only with mirrors. At first, it might seem flattering to see yourself reflected everywhere, but soon it becomes suffocating. Men are drawn to mystery and depth. When you become too agreeable, too much of an echo, you rob them of the very thing that creates lasting attraction, the excitement of discovering who you really are. So if you constantly adapt to his preferences, he feels like he's dating a reflection, not a real person. And that's terrifying.
Mistake number 2, emotional urgency. And this one might surprise you. Do you ever feel like you need to know where things are going right now? Here's a scenario that happens more often than we'd like to admit. It's been 3 dates. Things are going well. But instead of enjoying the moment, you're already planning your next conversation about what we are. You check your phone every few minutes. When he takes longer to reply, you analyze every word of his last message looking for clues. There's a beautiful Japanese concept called ma, the power of pause, the space between notes that gives music its meaning. In relationships, we often forget about ma. We rush to fill every silence, answer every text immediately, make our feelings known too quickly. I remember watching a master painter once. What struck me wasn't his brushstrokes, but his pauses. He would step back, observe, wait. The painting needed time to breathe. When you feel that urgent need to define everything, to secure your place in his life, he feels it too, like pressure in the air before a storm, and instinctively he pulls back. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding that attraction thrives in the space between wanting and having, between question and answer, between the known and unknown. The summary here is simple. Desperation has an energy, and that energy pushes people away, even when they can't explain why.
Mistake number 3, abandoning your own story. Have you ever noticed how you stop talking about your own life when you're falling for someone? Let me paint you a picture. You used to share stories about your work, your friends, the book you couldn't put down. But now, every conversation revolves around him. His day, his problems, his interests. You've become a supporting character in your own life story. Here's something that might surprise you. Men aren't just attracted to how you make them feel about you. They're attracted to how you make them feel about themselves. But here's the paradox. You can only make someone feel interesting if you yourself are genuinely interested in your own life. I once knew a woman who can make any conversation fascinating. When she spoke about her work, her travels, her thoughts on a book she was reading, something magical happened. People leaned in, not because she was performing, but because she was genuinely engaged with her own existence. When you abandon your own story to become a supporting character in his, you lose the very quality that attracted him in the first place. You become scenery instead of a co-protagonist. So remember, you can't be interesting to someone else if you're not interested in your own life. Now, let's talk about the most common trap, mistake number 4. Fear disguised as love. Can you tell the difference between choosing someone and needing someone? Sometimes what we call love is actually fear wearing a beautiful mask. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of starting over. Here's how it shows up. He doesn't text back for a few hours, and you're already imagining the worst. You find yourself checking his social media, analyzing his online activity. When you're together, there's a part of you that's always auditioning, always trying to prove you're worth keeping. This fear has a particular energy to it, subtle but unmistakable. It's exhausting for both people involved. But when you choose someone from a place of wholeness rather than emptiness, the entire dynamic shifts. You're no longer desperate for validation. You're offering a genuine partnership between two complete people. I lived this myself. 3 weeks into dating someone I really liked, he disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye. I spent days analyzing every conversation, wondering what I did wrong, until I realized something. I had stopped being myself and started being who I thought he wanted. The bottom line, you cannot lose someone who is meant for you by being authentically yourself. And anyone who disappears when you stop performing was never really seeing you in the first place. Mistake number 5, misunderstanding how men process emotions. Do you chase when you sense him pulling back? Here's what typically happens. You notice he's being distant. Maybe his texts are shorter. Maybe he's not initiating plans like he used to. Your instinct is to move closer, text more, ask if everything's okay, suggest more dates. But here's what you might not know. Men often process emotions differently, not better or worse, just different. Many men need space to feel their feelings, to sort through their thoughts, to miss you enough to realize your value. When you sense him pulling back and immediately move closer, you're often interrupting a natural process. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom by pulling at its petals. There's an old story about a man who found a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon. Wanting to help, he carefully cut the cocoon open. The butterfly emerged, but its wings were weak and couldn't carry it. The struggle, it turns out, was necessary to strengthen its wings for flight. Sometimes the space men need isn't rejection, it's the cocoon. Your job isn't to cut it open, but to trust in the process. In other words,
Give him space to miss you, and he'll remember why he was attracted in the first place.
Emotional climax. Here's what I want you to understand. You are never meant to be an echo, bouncing someone else's voice back to them until you fade away. You were meant to be the composer of your own song, so compelling and authentic that others are drawn to harmonize with you, not replace you. The women who never experience men suddenly disappearing, they're not perfect. They don't have some secret formula. They simply understand something profound. You cannot lose someone who is meant for you by being authentically yourself. Conclusion. The next time you feel that familiar urge to become smaller, more agreeable, more available, remember Echo. Remember that her tragedy wasn't that narcissist didn't love her back. Her tragedy was that she forgot her own voice. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Your presence, not your performance, is what creates lasting connection. So when someone starts to pull away, instead of chasing, pause. Use that space to remember who you were before you met them. Reconnect with your own interest, your own friends, your own dreams, not as a strategy to win them back, but as a way to win yourself back. Because here's the beautiful truth. The right person won't be scared away by your authenticity. They'll be magnetized by it. If you recognized yourself in any of these mistakes, don't blame yourself. This is the beginning of your journey back to yourself. Tell me in the comments, which of these resonated with you most? Sometimes just naming the pattern is the first step to breaking it. The choice is always yours. Echo or voice, shadow or light. What will you choose?